At first glance, it may seem that it's hard to install several versions of Wine within one Linux system. Fortunately, that's where Playonlinux comes into play. As the name suggests, originally it's been designed for games, but it supports many other complex applications. Playonlinux is an alternative to Winetricks. It's more complex, but you can run it in your distribution. And you should be able to do so since it works in virtually any distribution. For example, it's available in Fedora's default software repositories. Use it whenever it's possible. It's recommended to use Winetricks for applications that, for various reasons, Playonlinux does not support. Playonlinux is theoretically an alternative solution because it's used for the same purpose. That is, to automate the installation process of Windows games and applications in Linux. The program does exactly the same thing as Winetricks. It can be downloaded from the website playonlinux.com. The website is available in many languages. The installation of Playonlinux is a little more complicated. Therefore, some may ask, why do we use Playonlinux instead of Winetricks? We'll answer this question in a moment. Now we'll find out how to install this tool. It's similar to the installation of Flash. First, enter the website of the project. There you'll find a link to the repository configuration utility, just as it was in the case of Flash. Next, download the repository configuration that then will automatically be added to our system. Usually, you just need to click on the link, enter the administrator's password, and the rest of it will happen automatically. If for some reason this fails, right-click on the link and download it to your disk. Then double-click on the application. This should solve the problem. Once you've added the repository, you'll be able to install Playonlinux from it. When you run it for the first time, Playonlinux will configure the whole environment needed for Wine in a much more complete way. It will download all the needed libraries, fonts, and other components commonly required by the vast majority of Windows applications. It's also advisable to install the IcoUtils package, because it improves Playonlinux by better process management. This package contains two applications, IcoTool and RESTTool. If they're available, Playonlinux will use them, and will be able to manage the process of running Windows applications under Linux better than Winetricks does. Playonlinux also allows you to install more applications. Its database is much more extensive, so it's more likely that you'll find what you need in Playonlinux than in Winetracks. This is not to say that Playonlinux can replace Winetracks completely. The latter tool offers several applications which are not available in the former. It's good to have both utilities, especially that the installation of Winetricks is very simple. The only thing you need to do is download a script. A massive advantage of Playonlinux is that it downloads from the internet and automatically configures the best version of Wine for a given application. If you install the application from the Playonlinux database, you can be sure that it will be installed separately and independently of other applications, and that it will be run in the version of Wine environment which is most compatible with it. Winetricks can only create separate environment, but it doesn't give you the possibility of running a separate version of Wine. Playonlinux is not only able to do this, but it also makes the whole process of downloading, installation, and management of different versions of the Wine environment automatic. The installation process within Playonlinux is much less problematic. Both tools allow you to install an application with all its dependencies. However, in the case of Playonlinux, the whole process is much more user-friendly. The utility also informs the user about any additional steps that they must take, so that the application will be installed properly. If, for example, it's required not to check the option to reboot the system after the installation, or to start the application during startup, for each supported application, Playonlinux will provide the user with such information. Winetricks, unfortunately, will not. It assumes that the user knows very well what they're installing and what's needed in order to do so. Playonlinux is much more user-friendly and offers more support throughout the whole process. Let's see how Playonlinux works. In our virtual box, the application is already installed. As its name suggests, the tool was designed mainly with playing games in mind. In general, Wine is most often used just for this purpose. This is not to say, of course, that it's not compatible with other applications. Playonlinux looks much more user-friendly than Winetricks. The programs open in a typical window, and in the main menu, you can find a list of all installed applications. It allows you to manage, run, and configure them. The Tools menu is much more transparent than the one in Winetricks. If you want to add a new application, simply click Install. From the list of all programs, select the one you need. It should be noted here that Playonlinux requires broadband internet connection, because it needs to check for updates in the program itself, in the applications database, in the Wine versions database, and in order to download and install additional packages. When you install an application using Playonlinux, you need to have internet access too. If after the installation, the game itself doesn't require broadband connection, Playonlinux won't require it either. All of this, however, doesn't really matter nowadays, since most people have broadband internet connections. Even at first glance, Playonlinux looks just better than Winetricks. It's nicely designed, colorful, applications are conveniently grouped, and the search option is available. There are more applications to choose from too. And you can choose from a variety of categories,